All right, today we're pulling back the curtain on the modern blockbuster. We're going to decode that hidden rhythm, that pulse that dictates the pace of pretty much all the biggest movies on the planet. And you might be surprised to find out that it really all comes back to one cinematic universe. So let's get right into it.
You ever sit in a movie theater watching the latest superhero epic and you get this weird feeling of deja vu? You know, that sense that you know exactly when the next joke is about to land or when the next big explosion is gonna hit? Well, I'm here to tell you, you are not imagining things.
That feeling, it's not a coincidence. It is the result of a very, very carefully engineered structure. It's a formula, a kind of blueprint for storytelling that's designed not just to tell a story, but for maximum worldwide engagement. And honestly, it has totally changed how big budget movies get made.
So, what we're really talking about here is a concept some people call temporal calibration. Now, that sounds fancy, but it just means we've shifted away from that classic, slow-burn, three-act structure to something way more immediate, something you could call a dopamine-driven pacing model. The goal? It's simple. To give you these perfectly timed hits of action and humor and drama to keep you hooked, constantly stimulated, from the first minute all the way to the last. And nobody has perfected this model like the Marvel Cinematic Universe. See, the Marvel formula isn't just about good guys fighting bad guys. It's a rhythmic strategy. It is a masterpiece of industrial engineering that's built from the ground up to have this universal, cross-cultural appeal. It's basically a system for manufacturing moments. And this right here, this is that blueprint, broken down. Just look at how precise this is. It kicks off with a short 2 to 5 minute cold open that gives you an immediate threat. Right after that, you get a longer 10 to 15 minute status quo lull to bring you back up to speed with the hero. And this pattern, this cycle of tension and release, it just repeats itself over and over, all the way up to this massive 25 to 40 minute climax at the end. None of this is an accident. It's a schedule. And if you want to see this blueprint in action, look no further than 2012's The Avengers. I mean, this movie didn't just assemble Earth's mightiest heroes. It assembled the definitive pacing model for the entire MCU, and you could argue, for the entire modern blockbuster. This timeline of The Avengers just lays it all out perfectly. The movie starts with that immediate threat in the first 5 minutes. But then, look at how long it takes before the team is even together. That's almost half an hour of setup. But it works because it's broken up by these short, punchy character introductions. The whole thing relies on these intervals, building up to a monster finale that keeps the action going for almost 40 minutes, just by jumping between the different heroes. But here's the interesting thing. Not every action franchise is playing by Marvel's rules. In fact, some of the most successful action movies lately have pretty much built their entire identity by doing the exact opposite. And that creates this really fascinating clash of pacing philosophies. So first, let's just lock in what a typical Marvel climax feels like, right? You've usually got these faceless CGI armies, which lets them have a ton of violence without any real consequence. The stakes are always enormous, the fate of the entire universe is on the line, and the tension is constantly getting broken up by jokes, all while the camera jumps around between all the different heroes' individual fights. Now consider the complete opposite. John Wick. This whole franchise basically strips away everything except the action. In these movies, the action is the story. Every single punch, every reload, every tactical move tells you something about the character and his world, and it does it without needing a single word of dialogue. And this number, this says it all. 380. In a movie that's almost 3 hours long, our main character speaks just 380 words. The franchise just completely replaces long-winded exposition with pure choreography and visual storytelling. It trusts you, the audience, to get the story through the action, and that is a radically different approach from the talky Marvel model. So what it really boils down to are two completely different philosophies for keeping you engaged. On one side, you've got Marvel, with its constant chatter and action that's broken up by jokes to keep everything feeling light. And on the other, you have John Wick, with almost no talking and these long, brutal, sustained action scenes that are all driven by intensely personal stakes. They are polar opposites. So where does a franchise like Mission Impossible fit into all this? Well, the director Christopher McQuarrie kind of gives us the answer himself with this quote. He basically admits that sometimes the audience just has to sit through the dense exposition, the vegetables, before they get to the fun part, the dessert, which are those huge action set pieces. And you can really see that vegetable problem right here in the data. As the runtimes for the Mission Impossible movies have gotten longer and longer, so has the amount of time they spend on just talking, especially in the first act. See, unlike Marvel, which is really good at hiding its setup inside jokes and action, Mission Impossible will often just grind to a halt for long stretches of dialogue, and that creates this pacing hole that the incredible stunts later on have to somehow make up for.
So, okay, if other huge franchises have these pacing struggles, why is the Marvel formula so unbelievably dominant? Well, the answer isn't just in the filmmaking. It's also deep in the psychology of how we stay engaged, and in the cold, hard industrial logic of how you build a multi-billion-dollar franchise. This right here is one of Marvel's secret weapons, the Zygarnik effect. It's this real psychological thing where our brains remember incomplete tasks way better than ones we finished. So by using those mid- and post-credit scenes, Marvel is intentionally leaving the story unfinished. It keeps this little loop open in your brain, creating this subconscious need to see what happens next. And from a business perspective, that is a genius way to guarantee you'll come back for the next one. And another huge factor is just the sheer action density. I mean, look at this chart. A typical Marvel movie crams in way more minutes of action per hour than a classic thriller like a Bond or a Bourne film. And they do it by mixing up the physical fighting with what you could call quip action, using humor as another kind of stimulant, making sure your engagement level almost never, ever drops. But can this really last forever? The very thing that makes the formula so effective, its efficiency, has also led to people calling it bland and predictable. That whole conversation around superhero fatigue, it's not just about how many movies there are. It's about the feeling that we're kind of watching the same movie over and over and over again.
And what happens when they try to tweak the formula? It can totally backfire. Take Eternals, for example. It tried for a slower, more character-driven pace, but because we've all been trained to expect that 10-minute action cycle, a lot of people just saw the movie as slow or boring. When that rhythm is the only thing you know, any other beat just sounds wrong.
So what's next? The future probably isn't just one formula or the other. It's probably a blend. Imagine combining that clockwork efficiency and serialized storytelling of Marvel with the raw personal stakes of a John Wick climax, or the absolutely mind-blowing practical stunts of a Mission Impossible movie. Which kind of leaves us with this one big thought. In an age where blockbusters are pushing 3 hours and our attention spans are getting shorter and shorter, the fight for our focus has never been more intense. So the next time you're watching a big movie, listen for its pulse, for its rhythm. Because you might just realize that the most powerful thing on that screen isn't the superhero, it's the invisible clock that's telling them exactly what to do next. Thanks for tuning in.